Oh. Hello everyone. Owing to the fact that I did not successfully manage to upload a video yesterday, today you get 2. Aren't you lucky? The first of which, advice. In this path we all must walk alone. This path called life. Life is long, children. Life is wearing, difficult. Why do you think people age? And all through it all, one of the most difficult things can be our own inner thoughts, our insecurities. You must learn to accept yourself. It's not as easy as it sounds. You must learn to love even the unlikable parts of yourself. It's a confusing thought, but it's very true. There will be times when you find parts of yourself you don't like. Well, those parts are probably the parts that make you the most interesting. Okay? Take me, for example. I used to hate how weird I was, how strange. And now that I've accepted that part of myself, I own my weirdness. Now, one of the roadblocks on learning to accept yourself can be worry or even anxiety that others do not accept you. And perhaps they don't. But does it really matter? As long as you're not hurting anyone, just be yourself. Don't let other people's hang-ups get in the way of your happiness. Don't let other people with their own insecurities and their own problems interfere with your life. You have to learn, my loves. You have to learn. Let me put it this way. What does it matter how people think of you when the fact is they rarely do? Now, this may seem harsh or unpleasant, but it's not. You may catch a glimpse of another person on the road. Perhaps you're wearing something outlandish, or are acting in an unorthodox manner. They may give you a strange look. They may even share a harsh word. Screw them. They don't know you. They don't know your life. They don't know what you've been through. And, hey, they don't know it, but they're jealous, you know? Jealous that you are free. Free of the shackles of having to conduct oneself in a certain way, you know? Now, I'm not saying we should be totally inappropriate. Society has rules for a reason. But, I mean, you know, everyone has something strange about them. Or at least everyone who's interesting. Normal people are exceptionally rare, actually. Not that normal at all, in a world where everyone is different. What is normality? So embrace your differences, hang on to who you are, and for God's sakes, don't let people stifle you. Don't let people put you in a box. Don't let people dictate how you dress, how you speak, how you move. Because the people who are dictating this to you, people who are trying to put you in a box, do so because they themselves share that box. And misery loves company. Oh, how they wish they could jump free and truly be themselves. We, strange few, are blessed in that we are free of those bonds. Now, in addition to accepting yourself and accepting other people's views of you, you must also accept them for who they are. It's a two-way street, after all. Now, I mean, don't get me wrong. Some things should not be accepted. Murder, for instance, is a fairly despicable act. And that shouldn't be accepted, nor should it even be tolerated. Although, that being said, one can look to those with murderous intent, and it can be interesting, you know, to entertain oneself with the notion that they may be understood. It can be exhilarating to try and understand these people, and if you can understand them, then you know why they do what they do. That doesn't exonerate them of the guilt associated with such acts. However, once you understand why they've done it, perhaps you can find in your own heart not hatred and anger for them, but sympathy, perhaps even pity. What could have driven a man so far? Although, that being said, some people are beyond pity, some people are beyond remorse. Some people are beyond emotion. And those people are most pitiable of all. I feel sorry for the psychopath. He shall never know the joy of joy. There are many reasons why society may judge you, and the vast majority of them are invalid. And most people are pretty nice. You may be concerned that people may judge you for anything, really. Anything that sets you apart. Your sexuality, the colour of your hair, the way you dress, all manner of things. And some of these are, indeed, utterly trivial. And for those that aren't, well, there's always therapy. Not to change you, but to learn to accept yourself for who you are. Now, there are two ways of going about the next part of this conversation. You see, you may accept yourself for being... Well, let's go with the example of sexuality, and say that you may have trouble accepting yourself for being gay, or for being bisexual. In some rare cases, you might even struggle to accept yourself as straight. It is a very odd world. Everything seems to happen to someone somewhere. Beautiful little fox. So, you may accept yourself, but be worried that other people will not accept you. It may take time, and it may be very difficult, but if you can come to peace with your own identity, it won't matter to you anymore what other people think. I was 14 when I first realised I was bisexual, or began to realise it, and well, I knew there was nothing wrong with that, but it was very difficult for me to speak about it, because I was so afraid of what other people think. Now, I'm aware that some people may be against the idea, but I no longer care what they think. You see? That's because in accepting myself, I accepted other people's views of me. I must have had something deep in my head that stopped me from being able to come to terms with it completely. Eventually I realized most people just don't care, one way or the other. It's a trivial matter, after all. But one that is often blown wildly out of proportion. Now, the other way of looking at it is from the perspective of one who has discovered something about themselves that they find to be abhorrent. Again, let's run with the example of sexuality, because it's easier to... I mean, it's arbitrary and it doesn't really matter, but it's also a fairly extreme thing to have to come to terms to. And sexuality isn't entirely just your sexual orientation, it's also other things like your level of libido and fetishes you may have, that sort of thing. So it's also quite nuanced. There's a lot of things to hate in there. People shouldn't hate him, shouldn't hate these things. They're natural. But whatever, people still do hate them, and that's... Well, I think that's very sad that they have such ignorance. Anyway, let's say you have found out something about yourself that you think of as abhorrent, perhaps because of the way you were raised, or because of the society in which you live, or something. I don't know. There's all sorts of reasons why this might be the case. But... see, this is where it's more difficult to accept yourself in order to accept other people's views, as opposed to accepting other people's views to accept yourself. Well, the two are inextricably linked. You see, you may be in a society which is largely accepting of whatever it may be. But you yourself are not accepting of it. So you may have a lot of reinforcement externally telling you that it's okay to be whatever it is. And you will you know, disagree with them, you will hate yourself, and it will be a horrible, horrible mess. But eventually, you'll come to terms with it. Or you'll try to change yourself and end up killing yourself because you can't accept yourself for who you are. That's why you need to accept yourself for who you are, mate. This has become exceptionally rambly. Oh, well, I've still got time. Yeah. This wasn't the best way of handling this topic. But it's a complicated issue, learning to accept yourself. Just piece by piece, little by little, you'll come to understand. You know? It's easy to accept what people think of you when you realize that they rarely do. Ciao!